Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of the DK Show. Today, I'm joined by Khensani Nobanda. Khensani, I'm super, super happy to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Khensani, you're the Group Managing Executive, GMCA. I have you down as Group Executive Marketing and Corporate Affairs. What does GMCA stand for those who don't know?
Let me start with the CA part. It's corporate affairs, which is always interesting because as a marketer, what actually sits under me is the transformation. How we achieve our triple BE scorecard and the impact we make in society, as well as corporate social investment. And then the marketing piece, I basically head up the marketing for the entire Nedbank group. So that's what Group Marketing and Corporate Affairs stands for.
Whoa. Oh, so that's GMCA. Oh, I'm being a bit slow. I'm gonna ask the editing team to edit that out. No, no, I'm joking. Leave it in. I did have in my defense, I did wake up with a headache this morning and I took some very heavy medication. We'll blame it on that. GMCA, that makes perfect sense, but it's an interesting combination for me. It's transformation, which is amazing. That's very exciting. Marketing, which is my passion, and then corporate affairs, which encompasses again a whole. There's three massive divisions.
Yeah.
Like, how do
It's
you even sleep at night? Where do you get time?
You know what's fascinating about it, and I mean, as a marketer, so I always explain to people that if you think about what a brand is, right? And I always like to equate it to what did the iceberg to an iceberg, right? So if you think about the top part of an iceberg,
Yeah.
what people see is advertising, right? So that's generally what they think marketing is. Actually, marketing is all the stuff that's below the waterline, right? So that's the iceberg at the bottom. So that's things like the service that we give, the products that we put in the market, the impact that we have on society. So if we, from a transformation perspective, say that we're going to give payment to SMMEs in 7 days, given that they can manage their cash flow, that's a positive impact on society. If we say, for example, that we're going to fund X amount of students to study, different things. That's impact on society. But actually, that's then how people think about the brand. If you think about the CSI piece, so we changed our strategy a few years ago to say that we wanted to create jobs, entrepreneurship, and skills development in the green economy. And why the green economy? We think if South Africa had to differentiate itself with the green economy, and we've chosen water, waste, energy, as well as agriculture. And we think that like if you had to, really build skills development companies, in that space and stuff, it could be a catalyst for GDP growth. Now, if Nedbank is the brand that's doing that, again, that's how people think about the brand. So for me, the reason and why it makes sense that all of those things sit under me is because actually it really is about how does brand Nedbank land in market more than just advertising or marketing. Your brand is actually much more than all of those things.
Oh my gosh, you've just blown my mind. That is absolutely amazing. And the fact that you've summarized it so succinctly, you've obviously said it a lot. And, like if you put the pot on and it boils, eventually there's just like a little lump left over. And that's kind of what you've just distilled to me, which is the essence of your three roles
Yeah,
in a nutshell. So very well done. But now I want to put another challenge to you. If I met you in an elevator,
yeah.
and because that's quite a bit, it's short considering how much there is, but it's still long for an elevator pitch. So if I met you in an elevator, what would your elevator pitch be? If I said, "Hi, I'm Dylan. What do you do?" If I asked you, what do you do?
I would say I make sure that Nedbank's brand is positioned distinctly and well enough to grow our business.
Beautifully put. I'm a copious note taker. If I don't write it down, it doesn't go into my head. Position. So I did want to say, look, I think it must be an unspeakable challenge because you've got so much below, and I loved your analogy of the iceberg. So you've got so much below the waterline, and then just this tiny 30-second commercial or whatever, 1 minute
Exactly.
commercial.
Exactly.
How do you communicate all of this in such a short time?
Yeah, we always say one of the hardest things as marketers we have to do is to actually make choices. And in making choices, you decide what's the strongest part that if you communicate will actually land your brand in a much more distinct and value creation manner, right? So if you think about, okay, so let's take last year. Our brand campaign last year was time is more valuable than money. Spend it wisely. And the reason we did that is for many years, Nedbank has not been seen as a digital innovative bank. But actually, if you think about the journey we've been on in the last 6, 7 years, we've had something called managed evolution, which has completely changed our from a technical and digital perspective, the products that we sell in market. So, for example, right now, our app is probably one of the highest rated banking apps in both on Google and on Apple. The things that you can do on our app are distinctly some of the best in market and stuff. But a lot of people don't think about us like that. So when we did the brand campaign, one of the things we said is what will fundamentally shift the brand into a much more positive space, but as well as our business, is for people to think about us as more digital, as more technology, evolved. So the time is more valuable than money campaign basically said, if you use our digital products, you save X amount of time to be able to spend that time doing the things that actually matter. Because banking shouldn't matter that much. I know I shouldn't say that as a banker, right? But really, banking should be money, should be the thing that just allows you to live a great life. That, our purpose is we saying we want to use our financial expertise to make a positive impact on society. And making a positive impact on society includes allowing you as a person to be able to spend time not queuing, not trying to fill up forms for home loans, not doing all of that, but rather being able to go into our app, open a credit card in 5 minutes, apply for a home loan in like quickly so that you can spend the time doing things that matter. So I always go back and think about what's going to move the needle for the brand, what's going to move the needle for our business, commercial growth and stuff. And so that's how I think as a marketer, there's a lot of things you can communicate, honestly
Mm,
speaking, but
yeah.
you've got to take a step back and say,
Mm,
what's really going to move the needle? And that's why for us, like really underlining our digital innovations and propositions was important, but we wanted to do it in a beautiful way. I mean, if you look at our time is more valuable than money ad and, the product fit after that, it's just one of like the most beautiful ads. I can proudly say, I mean, last year, at the Luries. We won 14 Luries, I think, altogether.
wow.
And it was incredible that in the film category, the film that got gold was a Nedbank ad. The film that got, I think we got a silver or bronze was a Nedbank ad. Even in
Wow.
Creative Circle, for the Creative Circle Awards, when they looked at 2024, the number one film was a Nedbank ad. The number three film was a Nedbank ad. It's just incredible.
Wow.
So I think one of the things we've challenged, and I've challenged the agency and my marketing team on, is we will tell a fundamentally clear story around the digitalization of the bank and how the products that we have are amazing and can save you time and all of that. But we're going to do it in a way that moves people, whether it's to make them laugh, make them sad, to make them question themselves. But it really must be a beautiful, creative piece of work.
I think it's amazing and I think it's extremely creative and it is very difficult to take a lot of complexity and simplify it and then still have an emotional connection and a message and a story to it and you guys have really absolutely done it. So I'm
Thank you.
congratulations on that. Also, I've got to say, I haven't heard yet that you pay SMEs in 7 days. And look, I have heard horror stories of these big mega corporates in South Africa, like, 6 months later, SMEs are still
Yeah.
waiting for money. People are not getting their salaries. So I think that is absolutely amazing and commendable and phenomenal. And that's really like standing by your word. That's really like, what can we do that to make an impact? Like, how can we actually impact and
Exactly.
not just take, which is phenomenal. And so as a brand, you're up against, it used to just be the big four brands, and now there's
Yeah.
so many other micro brands that have come up and really, really taken market share. And it's so again, if I come to how do you differentiate against all your competitors, what is it like? Everybody's kind of saying similar things, and so it's a big job.
It is. And I think first of all, for me, differentiation is about consistency, right? So I think if you look at the last, at least since I've been on the helm of heading up marketing for the bank, we've been clear that there's three things that we are always going to underline. One is that we're a purpose-led brand. Now it's interesting, you read articles that tell you that the Gen Zs and all of millennials all choose brands that are purpose-led and all of that, which is true. But at some stage, there's a value equation that says, well, I'm not sure if I want to, like, as purpose-led as this brand is, like, I'm not sure if the value makes sense. But so we're always clear, though, that we're going to be a purpose-led brand. If you look at our history, we've been called the Green Bank because we've made investments in energy like long ago before it became a talking point, and stuff. So I think that purposeful thing for us is fundamental, no matter whatever we can ever evolve our brand to. And so when we track our brand every month, you will see, like, is a brand that supports causes I care about, or is a brand that is purposeful, or all of that and stuff. We shoot the lights out against any other bank. And so when I say you've got to be consistent, the one thing we cannot afford to do is to lose that differentiation, because as you say, it's very hard to differentiate in a market like this. So I think that's the first thing. But then the second thing is we're a bank. So people need to know that when they deal with us, they're getting the right level of financial expertise and stuff. So what we've been building in the last few years is this idea of, if you manage your money better, you can have a positive impact on yourself, whether it's your company or on your family, on your business, on society. So the whole financial expertise thing is something that we really focus on. Now, any bank can sit here and say, no, we're a financial expert and all of that. But the more we say it, the more people will think that we are a better financial expert than any other bank. And I'll give you an example that I learned when I started my career at Unilever. So I don't know how much you know of the Norox brand, right? But Norox used to say they've got more meaty taste than any other sort of stock cube in the market. And quite fundamentally, Norox did not have more meaty taste, but they said it so much and so often that that's what people then thought and stuff.
Yeah.
So even in the financial expertise bit, yes, we're really strong financial experts and stuff, but we're probably better in some areas than other banks, and some banks are better in other areas than us. But the more we continue to land that messaging, I think the more it becomes something that is like associated with Nedbank far more than the others, who maybe are more associated with things like Simple and all of that and stuff. But we believe that the combination of purposeful and financial expertise really does differentiate us. I think our opportunity as a brand is on like the boldness. And I'll tell you why I say that. Our archetype as a brand is sage hero. So if you think about the sage part, right, which is the expertise and giving you wisdom and knowledge, I think, Nedbank is really known for that. But the hero bit, brands like Nike are hero brands, right? The ones that like really inspire you and say, you can do better with your money. You can, like all of that and stuff. So what we're really trying to build is this boldness as a brand. So I think if we get those three things right, the two we already have, the boldness, because we want to be an interesting bank. We don't want to be this boring bank that tells you about money management and is purposeful without inspiring you. So it's the inspiration bit that if you look at our advertising, at least in the last few years, we've really tried to step that up, and we can see it, like really starting to change the perceptions of the bank. And so that for us is where we want to play. The other things, like, for example, how simple is it to open an account with you and all of that? We look at it as table stakes. We look at it as, it's not how we want to differentiate ourselves, but we must be simple. You know what I mean, right? How digital are you and stuff? Like, it's not necessarily how we want to differentiate ourselves, but we must have digital products that allow you know what I mean? So like those things we look at as table stakes, even though other brands differentiate themselves like that. I think if you differentiate yourself on things like that, they're not easy to keep for a long time because they're quite functional, and other people can compete with you very quickly on a functional element.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Minimum cost of being in business. They're not differentiators. They're kind of what people expect now,
Yeah,
you know.
agreed.
So yeah, I think for me, just as a consumer of the South African banking environment, and looking at the different brands and how seeing brands trying to reposition themselves and this big fight that's happening, emerging brands and all of that, I think it's very interesting. And I think you could almost be one would potentially, maybe it's just me, want to be a bit reckless and, break things, because you kind of fought, and that's why I think it's good to know your archetypes, because the sage is the wisdom of the ages. It's wise, you don't want to, but you're fighting against this hero that wants to break out. So it's almost quite a juxtaposition between those two archetypes.
And that's actually why we like them. I think the sage bit is we're a bank after all,
Mm,
right? And
yeah,
there's a lot of risk in play and all of that. But I do think we want to be a much more inspiring brand in banking. And I certainly think we've done a good job in that. But the one thing that you point out around, to people wanting to differentiate or change their brands, I think as head marketing, so CMOs of brands and stuff, one of the responsibilities that we have is to always recognize that our brands have roots, and we should always go back to the roots of those brands and never try break them, because that they made the brand to be what it is
right.
right now. So for me, the purposeful and the sage bit, right, like of our brand, the financial advice bit and all of that, is when I came into the bank and in my job, I think it's 7.5 years now. I'm not one of those CMOs who comes in and goes, well, I'm breaking it because I'm new and
Yes,
I want something
yes,
different, blah, blah,
yes.
blah. I always respect what the roots of the brands that we have the absolute privilege of managing are, right?
Yeah.
But I think what I then bring, which is maybe, I guess, a little bit also of my own personality, is how do we push the inspiration bit of it while still keeping true to what we are known for?
Mm. I think that's it's interesting. It also represents your older market, your newer market, but as a woman in leadership, um, you know, how because I also, having worked in corporates, I also worked at a bank for 2 years, and the gray suits with the gray socks. But so I think what my question is, like, I want to ask about how, we always talk as women about supporting other women, but I've met very few women who actually have supported me. Totsi Mamela Kambule was one of the few. She was my CEO at Land Bank. She was absolutely amazing, and I still love her. And but actually, I can count on probably two fingers, maybe three fingers, women that have supported other strong women. And so how is your journey? How has your rise been? Have you found, uh, you know, other women to be supportive of you in general? Or, I don't know. It's a controversial question. We can cut it if we don't like the way it goes.
No, actually, I think it's a really good question because I've been extremely lucky that, like, I'm one of those people who say really, I have experienced women who've supported me. I've
Yeah,
experienced women who haven't supported me. But at
yeah,
the same time, I've experienced men who've supported me and I've experienced
right,
men who haven't supported me.
right.
So this syndrome that I think we talk about women bringing others down or being not being
Mm,
supportive is something in at least in my experience, I really is not something that I subscribe to at all, because I think it's just been how like human beings have shown up, right? Like
right,
versus like what gender they
yeah,
are.
yeah,
And I'll start from the very beginning of my career. When I was at Unilever and I was an assistant brand manager for Rama Margarine. The brand manager for Rama Margarine was Litepu Machaba. And you can imagine, I'm 21 years old. I've come from Ritz University. I've never worked. Like, I mean, you had vac work here and there, but like really, like, we weren't really
yeah,
working. I moved to a new city, Durban, because obviously that's where Unilever headquarters were. Yeah, and she literally used to say, I thought I was getting an assistant brand manager and I got a daughter. And that was so powerful because it's not like she treated me like a child, but she gave me a lot of grace. So you're 21, you're partying, you rock up at work, like you've got a hangover and stuff. And she sits with you and goes, listen, this is not how work, like, what stuff, like, or for example, just understanding. I remember my first performance review. And I sat there and I was like, oh, so you actually judge how I was working? Like, instead of explain, like, that's actually what happens. So how you get promoted, what happens with
Yeah.
your increases, blah, blah, so she treated me in a way that said, I think you're really good at your job, but there's some things that you just need to
Yes,
think about,
yes.
manage and all of that. And that was a woman, like an incredibly, yeah, she made a big impact in my career. And then I look at Sharon Keith, when I went to Diageo to be the Smirnoff brand manager at Diageo, I remember in my interview with her, I walked in and I said to her, I don't know why you're interviewing anyone else, to be honest. Like, this is the job. And then, I mean, I was at Diageo, I think it was 10 months. And then she promoted me like in 10 months. And I was like, again, like really young to be the ready to drinks marketing manager. So I've had women who've like really supported me in that sense. And I've also had men, by the way, who've also just given me great opportunities. And then I look at my own team, right? If you look at my marketing leadership team, they are, so I'll say, so Romy runs CIB marketing, Buli runs retail marketing, Kirshni runs transformation, Annelise, our exec of integrated comms, Maud runs our marketing operations, and Tabi runs our IMEI, which is basically sponsorship, digital, blah, blah. So I've got a lot of like strong women in my team who report into me. And I've done that on purpose because the one thing that's important for me, whether it's going to be a male or a female, is that when I leave Nedbank, is Nedbank's the bench strength in terms of who takes over from me should come from Nedbank. And I think there's some really strong women who can take over from me at the bank and be like the head of marketing. So, and I'm really proud of that because I'm basically giving back what I was given, like in my
Exactly.
career.
Yeah. No, exactly. I completely agree. I mean, I love developing people, and I have found some people I am a good fit for to developing, and some people I'm not a good fit for developing, and they probably think I'm the a-hole. I think they're the a-hole. And so it's a very, it's difficult to say who's the a-hole all the time. I've realized that I'm more of an a-hole than I think I am. So I
But
think
you
it's,
know what? Some people would probably love that. Like, so like when I'm mentoring people, I always say to them, so what's up? What do you need? Like, what do you need mentorship for? Like, I'm not just
yeah,
gonna have a cup of coffee with you for fun. Like, you've
yes,
got to tell me what's your objective? What are you trying to do? But
yes,
like,
yes,
like I always tell them, I don't manage this relationship, you do. I'm not sitting
yes.
at home thinking about you. Like, you've got to be thinking about you. And then when you meet me, like we've got a very clear conversation. So they might look at that and think, oh, well, that's tough. Like that's how I mentor people.
I found in life, when I was in my 20s, I managed fairly big teams, and I hated confrontation. I was terrified of being honest. And so my first performance review with my team of 23, everyone scored like threes, average. Everyone, the entire department, because I was terrified. And then the HR department was like, no, sweetie, it doesn't work like that. I had to redo everyone's. And then I was like, you kind of need to develop in this area. And they were like, oh, thank you. That's amazing. That's so good to know. And I was like, what? People actually want honest feedback on where to grow. So I've taken that lesson to heart now and give people some good, honest feedback. But I'll be honest, in my life, there were very few managers in my life that gave me really clear feedback. You come across as this. When you do this and you do that, people think this. Well, thank you. That is extremely helpful. Nobody's ever told me that. So yeah, I do think honesty is the best policy. Khensani, it's been amazing speaking to you. Are there any closing words that you have for aspiring brand marketers out there?
Yeah, I mean, I always say for me, there are three things that make great marketers. I think the first one is curiosity.
Mm,
And I talk about curiosity in three ways. One is curiosity about the market, right? Like, how can you market to people that you don't know anything about, or how they're evolving, or what their needs are and their wants, and all of that. So I think curiosity is incredibly important about like, the market that you play in, but also curiosity about yourself. Like I always think you never fully learn, you never fully have every like piece of knowledge. I learn, geez, I can't tell you, probably like every day and stuff. I'll be sitting with someone and they'll say something and I'm like, oh, I never thought about it like that and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I grow myself in terms of, yeah, whether it's personal growth around my management style and all of that, or it's just growth in learning about AI, data, like all of those things. Like,
Yeah.
how can you manage a team of marketers who are telling you about digital marketing? And you're like, oh, I don't know what they're saying. Like, you've got to actually know it
Yeah.
yourself and stuff. So I think curiosity is the first one. I think the second one is like being passionate. And I think for me, the passionate bit like puts people like they're like, yeah, but people generally think extroverted people are passionate, and that's not true. I think being passionate is putting the right level of energy into the job that you do. It's when I talk about the Nedbank purpose, I feel it very deeply. So when the work that we do and stuff means that I think about really what is our impact on society and stuff. That's got nothing to do with the personality type. It's got everything to do with how you feel about your brand. And so I would say every brand that you work on, from Rama Margarine, I've always been passionate about. And like Rama's like whole thing was giving your kids good breakfast to make sure that they had a good start in their day and stuff. And that's what I leaned into. Like, so people would say it's just margarine. Like, for me, I leaned into what the impact is for the kids, right? Do you have a good
Right.
day and all of that?
Mm.
So you've got to find some level of passion for the brand that you manage. Otherwise, you'll never give it fully what it can actually land with. And then I think the last thing I would say is just like build a strong understanding that, which is the reason I love marketing, is there's the logic and then there's a creative bit. At
Mm.
the end of the day, marketing is about business growth. It's about identifying what are the issues and opportunities that can allow us to, in terms of opportunities, where are the opportunities of growth that we can get and stuff. Issues, what are the issues on the brand that maybe hold us back from growing, the barriers to growth. So you've got to be able to use that logic and at the same time be able to, as you answer whatever these issues are, be able to have creative solutions for them. And they're not always in advertising. They can come in many different ways and stuff. So ensure that you're a balanced marketer. So you're commercially minded, but you're also creatively driven in terms of, how you land, stuff in market. So those are the three things I would say. And they don't always come naturally, but I think the more you talk in meetings, the more you interact with senior people in your business, with agencies, the more you grow that muscle. I mean, you can't stand up now and say, well, I don't know about you, but like I can't go now and say I'm going to go run Comrades Marathon without having trained for Comrades Marathon. So for me, to
Yeah.
build those things is about building a muscle of understanding like what does good work look like? How can I really build strategic thinking and all of that? Yes, you can learn it, but you've also just got to practice it. So that's what I would say.
That's amazing. I think that's fantastic. I've actually written it down. I'm going to share that with my team. That is really, really good. Kensani, you've been an absolute well of generosity, love, knowledge, passion, and authenticity. And I have really enjoyed connecting with you. And you've actually, in this very short time, made me curious about the brand and even start to love the
Love
brand,
it.
which is
Love
very, very
it.
new. And I did not expect that at all. So you are a true brand ambassador at heart, and I have really enjoyed our talk. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And guys, please like, comment, subscribe, and share so we can get more thumbs up. My daughter actually laughed out loud yesterday when she saw how many YouTube followers I have. She says, "Oh, Mom, you've only got so many YouTube followers."
Oh.
She was like, "Oh." So yeah, I want to get in the millions. No, I'm joking. Kensani, have a safe travels to Cape Town and have an amazing, amazing day and God bless.